Does something need to play 4 times a day? Why should a children's film, which we know is never going to have a good late business, why do you need a late show? That makes no business for you. It makes no business for us. Why don't we book it where we'll give you an extra matinee?
Hi, and welcome back to StudioBinder Academy. I'm Brandon. Today we're speaking with film programmer Jake Isgar, who works for Alamo Drafthouse, which in my opinion is one of the best theater chains out there. Jake, thank you for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Now, to start off with, we like to get everyone's origin story. Could you tell us, were there any particular movies and or filmmakers that inspired you to work in the film industry?
Sure. It's kind of funny because it's, you have your big answers like, yeah, the second tape on the double tape release of Jaws that showed the making of, just like, oh wow, this is incredible. People put time and energy into this. This is just as interesting as the movie itself. But for me, a lot of it was just video store exploration and seeking out things that just seems like they were beamed from another planet, and it's always interested me. It's always interested me that there are folks that have this either burning story to tell, whether that's due to their person, or they're just like, I just really want to make something that looks and sounds cool. Like there's all these sorts of ways in which cinema can be created and made for a bunch of different people. So for me, it was a lot of just, it's amazing that this art form exists. This weird commercial art form exists. There's a lot of inconsistencies and incompatibilities with it, and that to me I find just endlessly fascinating. So really that fusion of commerce and art is what motivates me and interests me in this line of work.
Now, as far as your path to where you ended up now, everyone's journey is different, but could you give us a general overview of how you got to where you are now?
Sure. I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. And what was great about it, beyond just being a fantastic college, was we had an on-campus movie theater that was funded by the student union, which is pretty rare. And it was like, obviously, wow, there's an on-campus movie theater. It's amazing. But we also had a committee of students that selected what went on screen. And I'd always was interested in the machinations of theater programming, but in those 4 years, like really learned what that was, the administrative pieces of how do you get a movie? Who do you pay for this? What do you show? Like all those things. It was kind of a crash course in exhibition. And then from that, we were very lucky to travel to South by Southwest in Austin for a couple of years. And I really, that was around the time I started to try to understand like how this thing works in other places. And Austin's film culture to me is unrivaled due to, South by was a major part of it too, but also due to Alamo Drafthouse, which where I now work, and the Austin Film Society, as well as many other artisans and weirdos and interesting people that keep that space thriving. But yeah, I moved to Austin shortly after. I worked intern at the Austin Film Society. Cut trailers the first semester, or they do it in semesters. The first time I was there, it was when Richard Linklater had a residency screening series called Jewels in the Wasteland about Indian art movies from the 80s, which was just him waxing poetic about what he thought about like Dennis Hopper's Out of the Blue or stuff like that. It was just a really amazing opportunity to be like, oh, here's this world-class filmmaker just hanging out at the theater that he's a creative director of. Being able to be like a part of that was amazing. At the same time, I was working as a server and event host at Alamo at a couple, and then bounce around locations. But really, my heart and a lot of my time and attention have been with Fantastic Fest, which is Alamo's yearly genre film festival. It happens at the end of September. So I volunteered for that. I worked in the event team. That involved things like throwing buckets of fried chicken at people for the opening movie experience for the Lobster, or getting into a giant food fight, or I was almost like accidentally almost set on fire for the opening of Kevin Smith's Tusk of all movies. So it was just cool. This carnival barker showman mentality of how can we get as many people together as possible that just want to have a good time and experience new things together from other weirdos. Like, it's just everything about that and that sensibility is just, it's catnip to me. So being able to contribute to that and learn from that has been really amazing. And also I think like have hopefully further influence in it and make it easier for other people to understand and be able to do new things and chart new paths elsewhere. So whatever I can do to like share the weird stuff I've globbed for the past decade, I'm super happy to.
Well, that's amazing. It's such an incredible experience to have, just coming up, actually working at Alamo Drafthouse. Now, for those who don't know, could you tell us what Alamo Drafthouse is and what makes it unique? I know you touched on some of the things that you do.
Sure. So Alamo is like boiling it down to movie house eatery. So you can go watch a really fun movie or art movies or really anything. We also do repertory films. We show anything and you just have a full meal while you're there. But conceptually, the Drafthouse concept has been around for ages. But I think what makes Drafthouse really special is a commitment to presentation. When we play stuff, there's technical engineers that make sure it looks and sounds great. There's people on staff that are always like trained to keep an eye out for it. And the food and drinks are generally pretty good. I've had good experiences with it. Maybe it's Stockholm syndrome, but I think our teams do a really amazing job. And we also have a don't talk, don't text policy, like just kind of do things that enforce that you're there for a show. There's no ads. The only ads that are ever on screen are ours. There's a curated pre-show that's put together by just a room of brilliant, and interested and curious maniacs that are always like doing stuff. There's sometimes that we work with distributors to get custom videos and content for stuff. There's in-house things that we create. It's cool. It's both like an exhibition space. We play any movie, any size movie that comes through, but also like put on really great events. We have a really, really awesome team of designers and operators and folks that are just like really committed. Just like, how can people just have a good time? We're stuck inside all the time, and if you're gonna like be in another space staring at a screen, it better be fun, or at least like have somebody kind of take your mind off of all this other stuff. So I just appreciate the totality to it through which like we consider the experience and always try to improve like our own stuff too. Like nothing's ever fixed. We're always trying new things.
I know every time I've ever been to an Alamo Drafthouse, I've had the best experience. It's such a fun time.
Oh, sick. Glad to hear.
Now, getting into programming, could you explain what exhibition is in context of the film industry?
Sure. So exhibition is, I would say, if we were to go by tracks, there's, pre-production and, putting stuff together. There's, production, the film is the process of being made and completed. And exhibition is part of that third end of how do you get it out to audiences? And exhibition can mean plenty of different things. I mean, when you see think of like those FBI labels in front of like old VHS tapes about like, public exhibition is not allowed unless you have that. It could just be, somebody getting a projector out at a bar and putting on a movie. That is literally exhibition. You're putting something out there for other people to watch. As far as theatrical exhibition, it's surprising. It's like anything else, both really simple and intensely complicated. The theatrical exhibition, it's just how do you get movies and play them on screen for audiences? Obviously, theaters come in different sizes and shapes. Alamo's an interesting beast in that generally we only have like 8 to 10 screens per location, which is pretty small, all things considered. If you think of like art house theaters might be 1 to 4, but multiplexes, especially from the larger cinema chains, might have upwards of 20, sometimes 25 screens at each location. So from an exhibition perspective, it's like, okay, so then what do you show? What is any of that? And with exhibition, especially for a major theatrical chain, you're working with a lot of different types of partners, and it really is a partnership. The theatrical distributor licenses their content to us, of which we pay a fee to be able to screen it in front of audiences, and we have a financial cut of that. So there could be something where It could be 50-50, for instance, where if one distributor says, hey, we would love for you to play this movie on this for this week, and maybe kind of we can see how it does, and if we should keep shows going, we'll do it. We'll take 50%, you take 50%. Like, great, sold. And then you kind of go and for that. That is the very easy, simple part of it as far as the first run film business side of it. There also is the other case of we do a lot of revivals and repertory screenings, and in some cases, and those are, you know, sometimes owned by the same entities. Sometimes, you know, especially if there are movies that are, especially cult films that are very beloved, sometimes they're only owned by far-flung producers who might not, you know, want to have much to do with it in some cases, or rights are like unclear. But at the end of the day, it's us figuring out, you know, where materials may be, and materials would be, you know, 35 millimeter prints or digital transfers or anything, and who do we pay for it, and how can we get it to press play on the projector. So it's a lot of clerical and administrative work. It's also a lot of relationship management. It is, in a weird way, it is sales. Like, we're talking to sales agents, and that's weird to think about. It is an industry, but it's weird to think about, like, to me, cinema being the language of dreams, and then you kind of be like an opium dealer, you know, like kind of figuring out like how you control the supply and get it from one place to the other. But that's it's kind of like a very broad answer, but it really is just the act of showing movies in a theatrical space.
Now, could you tell us what the difference is between a buyer and a programmer?
Sure. So a buyer is someone who is engaging directly with studios for like first run products. So here's the example. We have internally for us, we have a buyer assigned to every location. And if there are 8 screens at a location, we have a strategy in place where we keep one screen open for our events. We call it a flex screen. And it's something that we articulate and communicate to all of our content partners, so that we have that open. So for us, the buyer would be the one that's managing kind of like the product mix and the flow of stuff of, hey, this movie is opening on this date from this distributor. Distributors in often cases want to have equal representation of what's on screen. It's very, very rare, at least in our space, where you see films by the same distributor on screen. You know, it's kind of like a thing that is part of the business machinations of it, and also something about people competing for space. But for us, like the buyer has they're using analytics and tastes and all this stuff that goes into this, and we work really closely with one another. I'd say for us, and certainly with the programmer side, is that we're really managing that event screen, and that could mean many, many things. It could be us, looking at a really big upcoming weekend and deciding, you know what, let's scale back. This Dune movie looks pretty big. We might need to have extra shows of that, so let's just kind of figure that out. In some cases, it could be what we use for our repertory screens, our interactive screenings. Private events can also kind of go into there. There's a lot of different uses. So I feel like in a lot of respects, the programmer piece of it is, we're both in content evaluation. I hate using content as a word, but it just is what it is. We are in that evaluative process. I'd say like there is like a little bit more of a curatorial slant for us with the programmer side. But it's silly. Like, I mean, like there isn't that much of a difference, but I'm also on my side not interacting with our like the sales agents from major distributors like my colleagues are. That's probably the main functional difference of our jobs. Okay.
All right. And speaking of the sales agent, I know you just said you don't typically deal with them, but is there any instances where you do? And what does that kind of relationship look like?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I actually, on my team, I actually do deal with a lot, but mostly for like mid-major or independent distributors. So movies that end up movies so often you see end up on the Criterion channel. I probably have interacted with some of those distributors in some ways, but yeah, it's so with exhibition, part of the rules, and there are like rules and standards that we have for screening space. So with our very unique structure in that we keep a screen open, when buyers are working with distributors, their kind of distribution rules of, hey, when I book a movie, I want to book it clean. When you book something clean, that means if you're showing something 4 times a day for the week from Friday to Thursday, then that movie will play with no stoppages 4 times a day. You go from there.
Okay.
I often work with distributors that are a little bit more flexible in terms of their show requirements. And generally those tend to be folks on the independent side and folks in more like special interest side. So I do end up working with them, and they have, titles that they want to release at certain times where, they want to get theatrical exposure in before it hits digital. So trying to like backfill and figure stuff out. So I'm kind of in a halfway point with that. But yeah, it's good. It's good reciprocal stuff. We always try to keep each other. Really, it's all about flexible communication, letting folks know, like, this is someone that's saying, I have this movie I think it could be really good to play in any of your locations, particularly here, here, and here, or what do you think? And, I would respond yes or no, or yes buts, or yes ands, or then we kind of figure it out together. But it is back and forth in a reciprocal relationship. I just think that it really a lot of the times just comes down to timing and space. For a lot of that, but that's my relationship mostly with distributors of that size.
Now, could you help explain the difference of the types of theaters, such as first run theaters and repertory theaters?
Sure. So a first run theater, you can classify that as like your AMC or Regal or Cinemark. Those are the big three. Those would be theaters that constantly deal with first run products. So this week, I think there's you can date this episode. Madam Web and Bob Marley One Love are 2 major movies that are being released by major distributors that they want to play at major exhibitors. With those size screens, they also might book concert films or other special interest things from other distribution partners. But you'll see that kind of more as like, this is the flow of the first run, first window part of that business. You'll sometimes see like a pattern of like what is in the ecosystem at that time, and also thing that you'd see at the beginning of the year prior to the Oscars are films that are up for Academy Awards, or that are small and specialized, expanding into more markets. So around this time of year, you'll see like a wide mix of stuff. On the flip side, you want a repertory theater. Those are generally repertory. I'd say repertory and art house. Generally speaking, they probably would be single screen or between 1 to 4 screens, I think, on average. If you look at some of the 2 major media markets, New York and LA, you can see some really like sterling examples of what a repertory house is. The Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly Theater is probably like the most like, this is a repertory house if you want to know like a traditional like repertory house. But I mentioned prior to this the Austin Film Society. And also is a 2-screen art house theater that plays new releases, new art and independent film, and also have a really robust and exquisite repertory program led by their programmers there. You kind of see the difference in major cities. You can kind of tell like based off of what movies are being screened, kind of the sense of like what audiences they're trying to reach. Predominantly, I would say that most repertory art house screens are run on a nonprofit model, which is different from the for-profit model that most chains run, and Alamo is a for-profit business as well. So the incentive structures might be a little bit different. Commitment to what type of product is shown the way that, if you're a nonprofit, you might be able to get grants from arts organizations or work with other sort of partners to help subsidize your programs. But yeah, it's there are a lot of those. But you don't have to be. It's a not all rectangles are squares situation. You don't have to be a nonprofit to be a repertory strain. It just happens to often kind of be the case. Depending, you just have to look at it on a case by case basis. But that's generally speaking like the sort of structural differences you'll see.
Now, Alamo is known for its curated pre-shows, which most theaters don't do. Could you tell us what the process is for choosing trailers? Is there any type of contract you have with the studios or anything like that?
Sure. So our ad reel, which we keep to 15 to 18 minutes, and I cannot stress that enough, is like a gift from God. I've been to some movies. I went to another exhibitor to see Killers of the Flower Moon just because it was just a better time for me to go see it. And it took like 30 minutes to start the movie, and I got to see Maria Menounos talk a bunch of times and get sold about a lot of Pepsi. It was just confusing. But what I love about our pre-show and ad reel, like everything, we want everything to be an experience. Like, want it to be like, hey, well, there's also a structural thing of it'd be good to open doors 30 minutes, people can take their food order, and that's also part of that. So this kind of came about when it was started as like, what's the thing to put on screen and do that is exciting and interesting. So we have our head of video, Blair Jimenez, and his team. It's Ray Lloyd and Zane Gordon Broussard. They're our 3-person video team, and they create all the in-house video content, whether that is putting together pre-show reels and clips. Sometimes they are curated and tailored to a film, kind of depending on how much time and energy or how big of a priority it is for us internally. There's our in-house ads. I mean, there's some really fun ads for season pass program or just our Valentine's Day program that just passed, like a free queso for a year thing. Then when we get to the actual trailers that are coming in from distribution partners, in a lot of cases, there are requested placements. There's also, paid placement on some that, filters through our marketing department, and it's their marketing department and ours, like kind of collaborating and stuff. It's like, hey, like, we've booked this movie here. We would love, enhanced placement on these target titles to kind of boost awareness. So that's something that you can see, but we keep it capped at five trailers per movie, which I think is good. And then we also have, in-house trailers that are created. So that's what those three gentlemen do. For our monthly programming, also in some cases where we have dedicated programs, like shorter trailers for that. We have trailers for our some cities, San Francisco, where I'm in. I book and program the weekly horror and exploitation series, Terror Tuesday, Weird Wednesday. So we have separate, on-screen promotion for those. That's actually contracted out to a freelancer. But we do stuff like that.
Okay.
We have custom content, and we work with other folks to do that. I feel like I'm giving extremely long answers to short questions.
No. It's totally fine. We appreciate the long answers.
Good.
Yeah, that free queso for a year really piqued my interest. I love me some queso.
Oh yeah, no, it's that's a contest that there are no true winners, no true losers.
Now, could you tell us what are some of the strategies and considerations in programming?
Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. I mean, I think that for us, we're in the alternative content zone, that single screen I was talking about earlier. I mean, for us, it's what can we do to get people that are already fans of our experience, and we know who they kind of are. How can we keep them just like still having a great time? And also, how do you grow that audience? I think that if the pandemic in the past 4 years has kind of taught us anything, I feel like we were always hyper cognizant of who is coming to our theaters, who isn't coming to our theaters, how different is the audience. We have theaters in Denver and Raleigh and New York and Los Angeles, a bunch over different cities in Texas. Austin and San Antonio are an hour apart, but those are radically different audiences. And the spaces themselves are different. It's like no one theater is the same. So in a lot of cases, it's how can we, in this period, this post-recovery period, figure out a great ways of identifying who is coming to what theater, staking claim in terms of taste and what we want to put on screen, and what sort of stories and visions we want to project and have represented. Like, be really thoughtful and cognizant about that. Right now, we're in the midst of a year-long repertory program called Time Capsules, where we're taking 6 years and 5-year increments, 1999 through 1974, and going in like five-year blasts over 2 months, or in 2-month increments rather. And it's a way of getting around a couple things. It's a way of doing anniversary screenings in a way that feel interesting. Like, I like the idea of collapsing a year into a bunch of disparate parts. There's also the reality of us not being able to book everything we could ever want to book. Some things aren't available in the format that we need. Some distributors don't license out content to certain theaters. So there's that. So what's a way of inventing that? And then when we look at those specific years, my colleague John Smith was saying, how can we tell like the story of that year? But it's also us understanding that, you know, in spelunking and like taking something, that's why I like the idea of a time capsule, taking something out, there is that sort of, you know, reverberation of, yeah, we're playing something from 1994. There are things that were probably crazy impactful for that year at the time that might not be as resonant now, things that have been uncovered since then or restored, things from, all different sorts of filmmakers and voices, like indigenous filmmakers, Black and brown filmmakers, queer filmmakers that weren't as foregrounded, or maybe had like a lower, like a more focused audience at that time. So what can we do to like kind of slam the past into the present? And I think that's kind of a lot of what programming is. It's a lot of contextualizing moments or contextualizing stuff. I mean, we're straight up spending hours looking at visions of the past. Even if something is new, it still is like, you know, it's not happening in current time. Like, we're taking that and kind of absorbing something from it. So I think that, at least in terms of repertory and in terms of that's how we look at it. And then also from the alternative, it's like, what can we do to broaden the scope of who are coming into our spaces? So that's kind of the big overarching like sign I have hanging above my window, I guess.
All right. And I know you said you work mainly in the indie world, but would you be able to touch on the differences in approach for a big studio film versus an indie film?
Certainly. So with any release, there's you hear about budgets and how much money is being spent on A and B. A film could have a certain production budget that's already assumed, but then when we get to the exhibition side, you're going to see the good old P&A budget, promotion and advertising. And that could be, if you're in a major market, like in San Francisco, there are Disney Plus or Netflix or Hulu billboards up. You see a lot of folks that are, promoting in like major markets, like, hey, this thing exists, watch it. So generally with the expectation of here is a multi-million-dollar production, I have to also spend multi-millions of dollars to promote it, and to get that return on investment, then like the best way forward in the traditional movie business is you put it up for public exhibition. So the audience member can buy a ticket, a split from that ticket goes to the theater and to the distributor, and there you go. So that's a simple space of it. There's a lot of discussion about the window of how long a film is in theaters. Basically, a window being how long is this on screen before it's available by other means. Other means being digital rental, digital download, which you would call the PVOD, premium video on demand. TVOD is like larger thing, and then there's also when can this be available on streaming, which is another secondary window where, hey, I'm paying a passive amount of an X amount of dollars to subscribe to this streaming service. This streaming service has this thing that I would like, and I'm going to press play on it and maybe watch it while I'm doing laundry. I don't know. and kind of go from there. So from the major side, if there's something is of like a certain size and scale, they are setting terms to the exhibitor for how much it costs to put this, and sometimes they can have booking stipulations. When Star Wars: The Force Awakens came out, and Disney had, they're like, "Hey, this is the first Star Wars movie in I guess it was a decade at that point," and it was like, this is a thing that has a lot of pent up demand. It's going to have a bunch of people from the older ones, so we want this percentage of the gross. This can be the biggest thing until the next biggest thing. So we have leverage, you don't. And also we want it to be on this size screen. We need this many shows to be in 2D, this many shows to be in 3D, like something like setting those terms. Another case of it would be, we see it now more often with premium large format screens, IMAX, any of the other like proprietary brands outside of IMAX, like Dolby and all that stuff. There are certain distributor major chains that have those screens are negotiating with distributors of, okay, this week the premium large format play is title X. That was kind of I think if everybody wants to kind of see what I mean by premium large format, you can look at last summer when Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning came out a week and a half before Barbie and Oppenheimer. Those are three movies. Most major releases rely on premium large formats for a majority of their gross. So to see things stacked up like that, it's like, look, there are a lot of screens. There aren't that many screens. So it's kind of, and they're all different content holders. So it's a case of, there's a lot of that going on. So that's kind of the biggest piece of the first run side. It's, we need to make this much money before this other window opens up. Okay, let's see how long it's on screen. For us, we don't play movies. We tend to burn through movies very quickly at Alamo. Part of it is because our seat count is very low. So we want to, in order for us to get new product into the building, we have to manage that in a particular way, and also work with our partners of like, hey, look, I know you had this movie playing for X amount of time, but it only grossed like this much, and it's not good for us. I know you have this coming up, so let's figure something out. Or this giant thing is opening. Let's figure out a way to maybe keep you on screen for showtimes that make sense, while this other thing is going to be, the big box office title for that week. So that's a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Could you also explain what counterprogramming is, and possibly give us an example from your previous work?
Yeah, certainly. So counterprogramming would be, if we know that let's say there's a big family movie that's coming out. The Pixar film, for instance, like Inside Out 2 comes out this summer. We know that the majority of business will be in our matinees and, a little bit in our major things. Probably the busiest time of those screenings are probably like 4:00, honestly, that we call them twilight show times, like the round right before prime shows, and prime being like shows that start between 6 to 8. But the late business ain't going to be that high. Maybe for Minions or something it will be, but for like a traditional like family movie it won't be. So a lot of that is us, like we will change house sizes and change all that stuff, but knowing that, it's like, okay, cool, if we know that that's the case, then we can supplement our late business. So then if we have our event screens open, we supplement that late business with like, great, let's play more like horror stuff, let's play more cult film, let's play more things that are going to be working towards that night audience. And also vice versa. Like if we know that there is a movie that's coming out that is going to be like, there's very little business in the matinee. It's probably something in which like the prime show might be really strong. Well, that could be for a variety of factors. Then we want to bolster our matinee slots with stuff. We also know we have the film calendar is constantly like shifting, and things are different than they were even a year or 2 years ago, let alone pre-COVID. But we do know like where the deader periods of the year are for new release products. So that's where we kind of throw out our big guns of doing more like saber rattling like programming. Last August, we as a company and as people got behind the movie Bottoms, which is terrific. If anybody hasn't seen Bottoms, it is a queer fight club for high school fight club. It's so good and so funny. But we knew like, hey, this is coming out on a date that is really, really good for us. We are going to disproportionately do better than most other exhibitors on this. And we have a content partner that's willing to work with us on this. So we'll throw the kitchen sink at it. Let's do, if this is the next great teen movie, let's do an entire month of great teen movies that were either directly cited as inspirations for Bottoms or ones that we felt cited alongside really well. So we threw that out and we put a lot of time and energy into it. There was also a re-release of Park Chan-wook's Old Boy that came out around mid-August. And it's like, yes, please. Let's throw as much energy as possible. So you can look at Alamo and our like grosses for 40 screens relative to, other like larger chains that, are playing upwards of 200, 300 screens of something. And we're either right there or we're like above it. So, and Alamo also tracks above the industry. But I think we've been in industry month-to-month forecast by like last 15, 16 months, like something that's like kind of silly. Like we're kind of like the Alabama I would stay on the top of the AP poll a little bit sometimes. But it is something like that. It's like, look, we know we have limited seating, we have limited resources, and we try to be ambitious about what we get behind. We know that our brand and what we've built behind it and what people entrust in us is personable. People get it. And it's also people making decisions for other people. And I think that that's really, really important. These are human decisions factored by, bias and error and overcorrection and all the positive stuff too. So we're always just looking for that edge and that angle of just how can we just like make sure we keep getting people in, even in periods that feel like there's slow periods for the rest of the industry. We also know that there's plenty of other people that are smarter than us that are like, hey, I've also thought about this. I also have this thing. So instead of us just like breaking our brains trying to think of to self-generate stuff, which we always should, my brain's irrevocably broken. But I think that there are going to be other people that offer stuff up to us as willing partners. So it's just staying open and agile and flexible. And also like just not keeping our eyes off the ball. Like every week there's a way to get people into the theater to play something cool. So it's like keeping used football again, game inches. It's like, it is like 52 weeks. Like how can we get people going every day, every week,
So how does a film end up on your desk? Like what avenues does it have to go through to get programmed?
Sure. Well, I think there are two jobs out there. There are email jobs and there are service jobs. And I have an email job where people often email me, hey, I have this movie. Here's the information about it. Here's, where else we're looking to open. And people say there's kind of a formula to it. Like there are like sell sheets where, someone is trying to sell you on playing something. That is from the indie side of it. When there are restorations or other boutique companies like Jazz Films, for instance, or Kino Lorber, or there's just so many and do amazing work. It's like, hey, this in a couple months we'll have this restoration of Title X. Is that something that is of interest to you in your circuit? We know that you make X amount of dollars on stuff like this, and we think this might be a right fit. What do you think? So it always starts with that ask. It starts with a, hey, hello. Do you know who I am? If not, hello, I'm this, and this is what I have. What do you think? Here's a screener link. Here's a trailer link. Here's whatever. So we, endeavor at any time, especially if we're putting any time and energy and effort into stuff, to watch and evaluate what's up, right? Like that is a crucial part. Sometimes that can just be a screening link on Vimeo or any sort of web apparatus. I think the coolest thing, and we're lucky and privileged, is like getting to see stuff early in a theater for promo screenings. So there's some cases where distributors can get something to us. Like there was a recent title that played Sundance that the day after it premiered, they set up a screening for us, being like, you are the circuits who play this movie. We are going to open this. We need to open this with you. We think you guys really like it. Here are the reasons why. And like, yep, you're correct. It's great. And it also fits like perfect. And we'll work with you on figuring the right date for your theaters and maybe structure some of their release plan around what we make available, which is an amazing privilege and really, really cool. So it starts with that and then continues with like a lot of back and forth, especially for titles that are, with less resources, like than a major campaign where it's, you can't keep your TV off without knowing about like the Minions or something. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff like that. So in something that's smaller, it's a lot of like back and forth and figuring stuff out in that way.
Okay. All right. And now from a filmmaker's perspective, for someone just like coming up, relatively unknown, is it possible for them to get programmed with their film? I mean,
yeah, certainly. I mean, we'll always give something consideration. For us, it's less about the filmmaker pedigree, obviously, like does factor in, but it also comes to like I know who this audience is. For us, we really, really work to, because we think it's best for all parties involved, titles that have either distribution or already, in hand, or a really strong and thought out marketing plan and strategy. Like I mentioned before, like we do events, we do stuff internally, and we will collaborate with folks that are independently releasing things. That we just only have so many arrows in our quiver to be able to spend that much time to do that. So it has to be something that, we either really get behind, we have to really get behind it, and have that time and energy behind it. But I think that, for emerging filmmakers or any of that, it really just kind of comes down to like, who are you working? Who's the sales agent, that is working on your 50, if your film is signed by like, there's a lot of independent sales agents or ones that go through film festivals and like that. It's like, are these folks that, will work in your interests to find the best deal for y'all, find something that really, really cares about theatrical. A lot of cases now, a lot of sales are being driven towards digital, which makes a ton of sense. There's gonna be a lot more visibility there. You don't have to spend as much money in marketing for it. You can focus the marketing a lot more. But that also creates this cool thing where theatrical also becomes part of the marketing. So people can kind of understand that and understand that any visibility helps that in that way. You just want to align yourself with people that are savvy in selling what you have. It's the same as like, do I buy my house by myself and go through all the paperwork? Do I have a real estate agent help me with this? It's just, or I got to get my visa renewed. Do I just go straight to the office? No, I'm going to work with AAA, or I'm going to work, you know what I mean? I'm going to go to the office, have someone do it. That's kind of what like a sales agent and distributor does on behalf of those films, because they have a vested interest too. I mean, they think something's cool. They find something salient about it, financially or culturally, and it's in their interest to do that on either on behalf of their client and on behalf of themselves. If they're sales agents, like if you don't get sales, then what are you doing in that stretch? So that's kind of that's where we interact more with. And when we get filmmaker involvement, it's really cool. We're very lucky that one filmmaker, recently we've done a lot of work with is Jason Reitman. Just before Ivan Reitman passed, we dedicated our Lower Manhattan theater to him. It's the Ivan Reitman Theater, and we had this connection with Jason, since Asburn. He shot several movies in Austin. We come and hang out and watch things at the Ritz Theater with cast and crew. But especially if they're like cinephilic or known like cinephilic filmmakers, we probably have worked with them a lot more because it's all again like a weirdo haven. I think that there's a screening coming up. Andrew Brzezinski, the Austin-based indie filmmaker, is hosting a screening of Star Trek V, just because he's obsessed with it, and I am too. It was my decision to play. I'm just like stoked he's doing it, but stuff like that where it's like, here's a filmmaker who's when we play his movies come out, they have distribution generally. We will work with them, but we're also just like, we want filmmakers and people to feel like good and comfortable in our clubhouse too. So that's kind of part of it. It is kind of like an Olive Garden, like once you're here, your family sort of thing. That generally happens out of our Fantastic Fest group as well. Like there are filmmakers that, maybe their first feature played at the festival and, now they're, they're in the industry, like they're doing stuff, and they'll advocates come back to play their films there, or tell other filmmakers they're coming out. It's like, no, Fantastic Fest is like a really good opportunity and really fun. So that's kind of the relationships we keep up with these like filmmakers. And our Fantastic Fest Presents program in particular is a way of filtering stuff that played the festival, generally from younger and emerging filmmakers, and getting theatrical exposure to them. And a movie playing Fantastic Fest doesn't guarantee theatrical play, but I do my damnedest to try to find a way to get it on screen. And I think that that ecosystem and showing that also shows to distributors and sales agents there is a path like out of festivals into theatrical. Like, here's one. This is an exhibitor that has that puts on a festival that does all this stuff, and it works to everyone's best interest. Like, that's a perfect, to me, it's like platonic ideal ecosystem of supporting independent for international filmmakers too.
Excellent. Yeah, that's so amazing to hear, and I think it's important for up and coming filmmakers to hear is that you do have that possibility.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, there's even if you make a movie, there's another track. I mean, this is something that's like very traditional called like floor walling, where sometimes a distributor can reach out to us, or a filmmaker directly can reach out to us, like, hey, I just want to get this movie shown. I want an Academy Award qualifying run in this market. What can I do? And it's like, well, on our public screens, we're not really sure if we can, but if you want to just buy out the screen and the financial onus is on them, if you're intrepid enough, if you're a huckster, if you know what you're doing, then like floor wall, why not? Like, hustle, get people in. There's plenty of films that have succeeded that way or started that way in their ecosystem. And I mean, a ton have, and some that have like gone on success, but like there are ways to get stuff on screen to be seen by other people. So I think that understanding what those avenues are and how they can be financially advantageous or disadvantageous, like what the drop of the pros and cons are, worth it for filmmakers. Like there's a will, there's a way. You probably find a way to get it on screen.
Now you already mentioned the split. Could you explain what is meant by that term?
Sure. So a split is the percentage of ticket revenue that goes to the distributor and to the theater. So the split is negotiated on the outset often, or in some cases, for major distributors, our chain has ongoing deals with them. There could be something where it could be on scale. Scale is when if a film makes X amount in its first week or second week, then that percentage is set. And then as the film continues to play on screen, the percentage can decrease. And when it decreases, it means it's more favorable to the theater. So generally speaking, first run percentages can run between, I'd say on average, 50 to 60%, where that 50 to 60% would go back to the distributor. Generally on the alternative side or indie side, you'll see realistically a 35 to 40% split, where that 35 and 40% is what's going to going back to the distributor, which is more advantageous for theaters. That's a 20-point difference. So if you were a space that there were a space that culturally is known for supporting independent work, that also is financially advantageous to any space. And driving that audience and doing that. So that also could be why you see, certain films play at certain theaters. Hey, I know this could gross in this city, but specifically on this screen in this city. So distributors might want to key in to, what specific location is there. For us, our Brooklyn location does high volume. We have a huge concentration of people that come for a 7-screen venue. Same with our South Lamar Theater in Austin. It's 10 screens. A lot of art films or indie films end up at that theater more so than our other screens in town. So that split is negotiated. There's also something this is more frequent now due to like post movie pass, where like an AMC Stubs program or Cinemark's program or Alamo season pass program, we have to negotiate with the distributor, even if people do use what's essentially like a free admit, to go to something based off of a monthly passive fee, there still is money that has to be exchanged with that, right? It's just how much is being covered by the exhibitor to send back to the distributor. So there's data and insights into that of what audience member is coming to see all this stuff. What movies invariably end up having more season pass or that sort of usage. And I'm not sure how it is at other exhibitors, but I mean, ours tend towards, our base want to see more art independent and repertory stuff. These are the maniacs. These are the power users. These are the people who are coming, often, right? So that changes, what our split could be with that. Because there's a couple of factors that are at play.
Now, where do you see the future of exhibition, and how has it changed as with the rise of streaming?
Sure. I think the future of exhibition is in having spaces, comfortable spaces that host events. I think a lot of hay was made, and appropriately so, for what AMC and Variance Films brokered with the Taylor Swift concert film. It's not the first concert film that's ever been released. It certainly won't be the last. But the idea of treating something where an exhibition chain kind of set the terms for how it would go. Maybe it was as another exhibitor, we might have some notes and questions about next time. But something where if the Paramount decree, the thing that separated, distribution and exhibition and production is pretty much sunset at this. It is sunset at this point. Then there are less rules about this stuff than there were before, which means there's more possibilities. And I think the future of exhibition could lead to more flexibility in terms of how releases are considered. Does something need to play 4 times a day? Why should a children's film, which we know is never going to have a good late business, why do you need a late show? That makes no business for you. It makes no business for us. Well, why don't we book it where we'll give you an extra matinee? Stuff like that. We've seen exhibitors, or we've seen distributors, try more of this stuff. It's just the industry in the United States or North America is run very differently than it is in Europe. Show schedules in Europe work very, very differently than they do in European territories do than here. So I think that so much of the future of exhibition will hinge on, figuring out what is post-multiplex, because there frankly just isn't enough coming onto larger screens from major purveyors to fill 20 screens on a regular basis, or might fill 20 screens, but who knows who's going, if that. So I think it's endemic on exhibitors to keep their eyes open to, importing, films from other countries. I was so thrilled with the release and success of the Indian epic RRR from last year, because that was just something that had an initial release, but it had a second life. And we at Alamo played, I think, a pretty big part in helping that out, among many other people, but we had our part of it. So it's like, things that are cool and exciting that get you out of your house and feel like something, right? But if it feels like a schlep, if it feels too expensive, if you go into these spaces that don't feel kept up, if they don't feel like the presentation standards are, that different than you just deciding, I got a nice TV and a nice set of headphones, I'm just going to do this. You know what I mean? Like there are those structural things, right? So it's just, I think it's a big part of it. I think that I have a lot of opinions on the finances of streaming and the viability of it for the rest of the industry. But I do think one thing is really certain is that this is a tried and true thing that has kept an industry going for, 100+ years of, you got a show, cool, here's a ticket, come and sit down, enjoy it. Money's going wherever it's going, but we know this discrete experience, this thing is happening. So I think that, as the uncertainty kind of goes away a little bit, then we'll see. I mean, I think that it has to be the incentive structure for some of these folks to be like, no, it actually, like, theatrical, like, is good for our business and it's good for awareness. Like, look at the difference between something that went straight to streaming internally versus something that got theatrical and went to streaming. Some people are making those evaluations of things that they originally had for streaming only. Let's make it theatrical. The Mean Girls musical was a good case for that. That was originally supposed to go to a streaming platform directly, and Paramount decided, no, we're going to go theatrical with this. And that's $30 million more than you would have made just as streaming only, you know. But there's a lot of contract structures, a lot of other things that are in place, royalties, all this stuff. I mean, if you're always wondering why am I able to get this for free or really cheap, it's because people and artists are not getting paid for it. That's why. Why is Spotify $10 a month? Why is Netflix only $15 a month? There's all this stuff here. Well, you only give them $15, you're going to get that experience. So those are, I think, also just part of the honestly the part of the consumer, but just people being aware and maybe being thinking about, you know, where you're spending your time and your money, and your artistic impulse, like where that goes. That also comes down to what gets made, who's allowed to make it, is any good, is it interesting. I think last year told us a lot. You look at the top movies from last year. What, Barbie? It's a movie about a doll, but it's still a legit, like, really, really fun movie. Oppenheimer was a huge hit. You know, Mario Brothers, we don't know what the Mario Brothers are, but it still feels newish. It's not, you know, Fast 10, although I enjoy those movies. It's crazy there's 10 of them. You know, it's just, you know, not everything needs to be gigantic pixel dominated stuff, and not everything needs to be fit into these little brackets. Like, allow for experimentation, allow for new cool stuff to emerge. I don't know. Let's just raise the barriers, or lower the barriers of entry. Don't raise any barriers. Lower the barriers of entry, and you'll see audiences come out for it, because you don't know until you reach out to them.
Definitely. Yeah. From what it sounds like, Alamo Drafthouse is not the gatekeepers.
We try very hard not to be. I am a professional gatekeeper, quite literally. and every distributor is the keymaster. No, for real. Like, I think that any choice of what you put on a calendar, whether it is a first run title, literally anything, it is a cultural, financial, and political choice. And all those things should be weighed out, you know, and it's never going to be a 1-to-1 for all those three. Like, there are just a lot of different factors that go into it. And I think about the gatekeeping thing a lot. So I'm glad I'm with the here, but no, totally. We do our best. I mean, we're human. We make mistakes. We have our specific backgrounds and experiences, but always trying to just, you know, have fun and get more people out and just have a good time at the movies.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, those are all the questions we have for you. For someone that might be interested, is there somewhere they could go to learn more about Alamo Drafthouse or find the nearest one to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to drafthouse.com. You'll be able to see a drop down of all the cities that we're currently in. There are some that are upcoming. We're opening a theater in Naples, Florida. I'm from Central Florida. Naples is South Florida, so it's kind of cool to actually have a Florida theater, and it's all golf themed. There's going to be an insane miniature golf course at the center of it. It's really silly, and it's all in good fun. So you can see all the cities that we are currently in. I would say if you want to learn more about Drafthouse, you could look at the internet. Wikipedia is a good place to start. No, but I mean, we have more stuff there. You can follow us on social, just see, you know, what programs we have coming up, and food specials and all the sort of things we offer, all the, you know, films that we're really excited about and getting behind. I know just recently some of my colleagues put together a 80s dance party, or 80s like costume screenings for this movie Lisa Frankenstein, which is really, really fun. It's, you know, Diablo Cody writing kind of like a mashup of The Cabinet, Dr. Caligari, and Heathers. And it's the sort of movie that we would get behind. So check drafthouse.com for, you know, all the stuff about us, and, you know, check out what our enemies have to say, what our friends have to say. You can learn a lot. It'll be fun. You just and go to theaters. It doesn't have to be with us. Just go to theaters. That's all I got to say.
Yes, definitely go to theaters. Well, Jake, thank you again so much for all of the information that you've given us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh man, pleasure was all mine. Like, really appreciate it, Brandon. As you can tell, I could probably talk about this for a lot longer, and would say a lot more things off the record. But no, really, really appreciate y'all asking me to do this, and always love shedding some light on a very strange industry, and just for people to know what's up, and just know that, you know, it's cool and can always it is a capacity to be better. So the more the information you share and provide about how things work or how they could work, then it'll improve.
And if you're looking for more interviews or deep dives into the StudioBinder software, be sure to like and subscribe to be notified when new videos are added. I'm Brandon with StudioBinder Academy. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.